Hello, my name is Cherie, and this presentation is titled Teens, Leisure Reading, and Digital Devices. This presentation is submitted for evaluation for Info 285, which is taught by Professor Scott Walter at San Jose State University's School of Information, serving as a proposal for my research study regarding teens, their personal reading habits, and how digital technologies affect those habits. But first, I wanted to give an introduction to this topic, particularly defining what teenagers are and leisure reading or pleasure reading habits are. So, the International Federation of Library Associations and Institutions, or IFLA, writes that teenagers are, generally speaking, the years between 12 and 18, and this range may be extended past 18 years depending on country and culture. Additionally, leisure reading or pleasure reading, which will be used interchangeably throughout this presentation, can be described as reading for entertainment, relaxation, or even social reasons. And lastly, in the last few decades, teenagers have become synonymous with their use of social media, mobile phones, and other digital technologies. In 2006, librarian Anita Beeman argued that digital tools such as blogs, playlists, and author social media accounts enhance and deepen teens' reading experiences. Thus, this research study is hoping to serve as an updated exploration into the topic, and perhaps provide an exploration for less studied areas of this topic. Thus, my research questions for the study are as follows. 1. How do teens define their pleasure reading habits in the 21st century, focusing especially on the last decade? 2. Does digital media, such as playlists, author social media accounts, or websites, and/or fan-created content enhance or distract teens from engaging in pleasure reading? And finally, how do teens find books they might be interested in? Is social media and other internet platforms an effective tool for recommending books to teens? After reviewing the literature, there are a few emergent themes regarding teens, leisure reading, and newer technologies. First, there's a broad swath of scholarship focused on studying teens and pleasure reading habits in general. For example, a few scholars focused on the capacity for teenagers' personal reading habits to contribute to higher levels of reading comprehension and overall reading abilities. There was also scholarship formed on leisure reading habits and their contributions to the formation and construction of teens' identities. For example, as Elkin and other authors found, reading may compensate for the differences of growing up and complex ways of living. In particular, reading offers intellectual credibility, identity, subversion, being part of the crowd, comfort, the opportunity to be alone. Finally, scholars have been studying the use of technology, but have been divided on whether its use enhances or detracts from teens' overall reading ability. For example, some librarians have established virtual book clubs, which they argue are convenient and help teens develop social relationships over a shared love of reading. For other scholars, they've found that phones and social media are big distractions from pleasure reading. So for my proposed research study, the population focus will be on teenagers from Bakersfield, California, so approximately 100 of them. I chose Bakersfield because it's the current city I reside in, and I have relationships with the local libraries. Additionally, I believe the population may be diverse enough to reflect a broad range of identities and literacy levels among teen readers. The study design will primarily be exploratory and descriptive, hoping to provide an introductory overview on the research topic. Finally, the primary data collection instrument will be through surveys, specifically online questionnaires, utilizing a mix of qualitative and quantitative methods. As I mentioned, the survey will primarily use qualitative and quantitative methods for our study's findings. For example, this sample question employs the Likert scale and asks participants on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being least likely and 5 being most likely, how likely are you to use Goodreads to find book recommendations? So these questions will be supplemented with a few qualitative questions for further analysis, such as the sample question listed on the slide. And again, this survey will primarily be used for online for an easier gathering of data. As surveys are being submitted, I will begin preliminary coding in order to more easily organize my data, eventually using CACDAS or computer assisted qualitative data analysis software program, such as Atlas DI or the Equal iPad app, in order to generate a substantive codebook. The largest ethical concerns for the study are with the participants' ages. Because the participants are teens, they're considered a vulnerable population, and special attention will need to be paid to this fact. Because the participants are minors, special care will need to be made to obtain parental permission to participate in the survey. This is especially true for teens who may come from underrepresented backgrounds, such as those whose parents are non-native English speakers. As Merga points out, parents who are non-native English speakers are often deterred by parental consent letters with complex language. Thus, great care will need to be made to ensure this study is as accessible to as many teens and families as possible. Additionally, this survey will primarily be distributed through local schools and public library teen programs. Thus, cooperation with trusted partners and organizations will be essential to a successful number of responses from teens with a wide variety of literacy levels and identities. Finally, due to the self-reporting nature of this type of data collection method, participants may have limitations which describe their present and past experiences with pleasure reading and online book recommendations. So something that to note that may be a possible limitation. Despite these limitations and concerns, however, this proposed study would offer some fantastic insight into teens' reading habits, a population that is admittedly still under-researched and underserved in LIS. So the study would give updated insight into teen motivations for reading in the 21st century and provide an exploration of the relationship between teens' leisure reading habits and digital devices. Finally, the study would help improve readers' advisory practices for teen readers from teen librarians and high school teachers. In conclusion, the teen leisure reading habits and the relationship to digital technologies is a fascinating, multi-layered area of study that could definitely use more delving into. So through the data gathered from local teens throughout Bakersfield, California, this study seeks to give an updated examination of this relationship, as well as fill the gap in the literature examining the relationship between social media and readers' advisory opportunities for teens. And while this data should not be considered conclusive due to the smaller sample size, it should provide an introduction and exploration for future scholars to expand their research upon. And this concludes my presentation. Thank you so much for listening, and please do not hesitate to contact me if you have any questions.